Welcome to the Card Text, an unofficial podcast about Marvel Champions at the LCG. We cover rules discussions regarding gameplay and aim to help fans of the game better understand the inner workings of their favorite Marvel card game. Welcome to the Card Text, episode 12. We're going to be repeating the format of our last episode, the 3-card episode, in which we each pick a card, none of us knowing which card each other picked. And from the most recent article preview, in this case would be Nova. Nova Hero Pack was announced this week on the 27th of January for release sometime after Sinister Motives, tentatively scheduled for spring of 2022, and the Nova Pack will be after that. The hero is Sam Alexander, who is another champion. He comes with aggression, the aggression aspect. He's the only other champion in the game, aside from, I think we have in game right now is Miss Marvel. But Miles Spider-Man will be the very next. It'll be Nova. And this is also the first hero pack that's going to be coming with its own modular encounter set featuring a character called Armadillo. And we might have a little more on that later. But yeah, we're continuing our 3-card format here with the Nova release, or the Nova preview. And we each picked a card, and we're going to talk about it. The card I picked was the aggro card in his pack called No Quarter. It's a 2-cost aggression event. It's attack traded. It has the requirement keyword, which I believe, according to the article, means you have to spend at least one of whatever the specified resources. In this case, it's a physical. So the requirement keyword. It's a hero action, an attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy. For each point of excess damage dealt to that enemy by this attack, discard the top card of your deck and add each aggression red card discarded this way to your hand. And it's got the mental resource. I think initially I was really excited to possibly put this in Hulk, because Hulk, I think, could use something that mills his deck to get more cards. Anything that's going to help him cycle his deck or possibly add more cards to his hand. But in solo, I don't see that working for him. Maybe in multiplayer, I heard some talk about possibly using No Quarter with Yarnbjorn and Follow Through to make that attack a little heavier so you could get more cards, which seems pretty promising. But I think the go-to character for No Quarter is probably going to be Miss Marvel, because she can get that 4 damage to become 6 with her upgrade Embiggen. And I mean, I like that it can pay you back for it, right? You pay 3 out of hand, and you could possibly get 2 to 3 more attacks. You could probably even net 1 card, but you will need a way to do some sort of damage to whatever minion it is that's out in front of you in order to try and get as many cards as you can. What were the other combo pieces? I think Angela would be good. Angela is the ally. You put her into play and you choose from the top 10 to put an ally in front of you. What's the other one? Looking for Trouble. Those 2 could be good pieces to put in your deck along with No Quarter. And any other hero that's going to have a physical resource on the board as a way to generate their resource for No Quarter. So like Super Soldier Serum, Web Shooters, and Martial Prowess, the aggro upgrade itself, would obviously work with it as well. So I feel like I've said a whole lot about this card now. You guys have any thoughts on No Quarter?
Yeah, it's one of the cards I considered talking about as well. It is really nice. I think you can run it in Hulk, even solo. I mean, he needs all the cards he can get, so any that you can get extra is great, and it's a good cost card for what it does for you. But yeah, I think probably Hulk is not the best place for it. Ms. Marvel may well be. I think you want to run it in a hero that has a lot of supports and upgrades in their kit, because when you play it, you want lots of aggression cards in your deck at that point, so that you're getting the maximum number of or close to the maximum number of cards back for the effect, which means you want to be thinning all of your kit cards out, ideally. And yeah, Ms. Marvel has quite a bunch. She can also recur it with morphogenetics, which means you can play it again, using the cards that you just drew to pay for it. Yeah, doubling up its effect. Yeah, I really like it.
That's what you call a synergy, right? Yeah, I was trying to figure out whether you wanted a ton of attacks or if you wanted it to just cycle your deck and do a lot of excess damage. I haven't come to a conclusion on that yet, but I do feel like it fits in Ms. Marvel.
I think it's nice in being versatile. It's kind of, as opposed to the typical 2 for 3 damage, 2 for 4 damage is good, of course, but the fact that you can hit the low health minions in hopes of drawing more cards. It's not wasting damage, and even sometimes I think overkill can feel a little bit like wasted damage in that if you're not really ready to go after the villain, this little 2s and 3s on the villain can feel wasted. Although in some cases it's nice to make that even those little bits of progress. But as far as a replacement for overkill, this is a nice alternative. I think if it was just straight card draw, then it would be a little bit much. But the fact that it can fail, it makes it more nicely balanced. But it also means that you can, I think, as Scott was alluding to, you can kind of choose your hero and build your deck in such a way to make it best value that it can be. I always like that in terms of card that you can do better with if you build your deck, choose your hero to fit it very well.
I agree. And just to clarify, no quarter doesn't limit your target. The minions being most of our choices for target here, just because they have the lowest health. You could also do this on one of the stages of the villain, so long as he has another stage. If he's like really low on health, you could also do it on the villain. It's probably just going to happen a lot more infrequently.
And importantly, you can just deal 4 damage to the villain, which sometimes it's just where you're at.
Yeah, 2 for 4 is not bad.
Agreed. So move on to the next card. And I can't remember who went second last time. Theorel?
I believe Theorel did. Yeah.
Okay.
So the card I picked is also one of the aggression cards from Nova's pack. I like a lot of his pack, but I do think that he has some solid aspect cards going in. So I picked Fluid Motion, which is a 1-cost upgrade. It's a skill and has a hero response. After you play an attack event, exhaust this card, your hero gets +1 ATK until the end of the phase, max 1 per attack event, and it generates an energy resource. I guess the thing I like the most about this card is kind of in the same vein as what I was saying with No Quarter, that it offers interesting deck building opportunities. You're building. It takes the kind of the event half of aggression that's, where you have these solid attack events, and it takes the attack boosting side with combat training and, trying to use your basic attacks as well as possible. And it brings them together to say, well, if you can, get 1 or 2 of these down or 3 of these down and play multiple attack events, you can get your attack well boosted. Of course, at that point, you're probably not going to be able to ready very many times to use that attack stat. And so, it just creates a really interesting, to me, push and pull between, so how many attack events do you run? How much do you invest in readying and being able to use the attack multiple times? And just kind of finding that balance, I think, is going to be a very interesting experience. If you're playing a hero that plays an attack event, just an attack event every turn, this is just a better combat training because it's cheaper because it only costs 1. But then, you have to consider if you're running multiples, then how can you make the most value of that? Or, if you're running so many attack events that you're playing 1 every turn, how do you get the best out of your basic attacks? And just a lot of opportunities for good deck building, interesting options, and trying to find the heroes which it works the best in and the situations.
I think that's an interesting point, that it's kind of like a variation on combat training. You get to kind of spread it out a little bit, and it comes with a little more caveats, hoops you have to jump through in order to get the benefit of that +1 attack. I think for this upcoming wave, the Sinister Motive wave, it fits right in pretty perfectly, because I think Ghost Spider really likes to play events. She gets perks from them. I think she also readies, if I remember correctly, from playing certain triggers. Nova himself wants to play a bunch of events, and I believe that also... Does it have the ability to ready him, or does it just ready his helmet? Can't remember.
It's just his helmet.
When he activates, he readies his helmet, which lets him play another event afterwards. That works well in the sense you could play an event, get the boosted attack, ready your helmet, play another event. It lets you go farther, especially because Nova's stats are so low. He's only got 1 attack, 1 thwart, yet you want to use them every turn. And so that's going to create some interesting... How do you boost those stats to make them useful? Right? Unlike, say, Miss Marvel, where her 1/1 stats, it's kind of like, well, who cares? I'm just not going to use them. I'll just recur my events all the time. With Nova, it's kind of like, I want those stats to be good because I know I want to use them every turn. I don't really want to exhaust him for other purposes, because then I lose out on his whole resource out of doing so. So, yeah, I think that boost is going to be a big deal for him.
And his kit seems to be engineered toward wanting to play event after event, both with the cost curve and the bonus he gets from his helmet. So,
yeah, I'm expecting quite a large number of events in his kit, and it does fluid motion. It does synergize with Ghost Spider a bit, but you're going to have to be careful because she readies on interrupts and response events. So yeah, an action isn't going to work. But yeah, if you've got the right deck build, it could fit in there really nicely.
All right. If that's all we have to say about fluid motion, we can move on to the next card, which would be Scott's card.
Yeah, I found picking a card for this really difficult. There's so many really good cards, and so I decided to go with a really odd one. Everyday Hero. Basic resource card. Gives you a wild. While your identity has the civilian trait, this card can be spent for any player and gains the text response after you spend this card for a player, heal 1 damage from that player's identity. And I can sum up what I think about this in one word, and it's what? Just a bizarre, brilliant card. I love it from the design aspect of it. It's just so good. Obviously, not great in solo, although you can spend it for yourself, so you just don't get the extra benefit. It's just a wild resource in that case.
But it still heals you, right? It should still heal you if you're civilian.
Yeah, it should still heal you.
Yes, I guess it should. I hadn't thought of that, actually, because it's not another player. It's just a player. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so it's great in solo as well.
A lot of the healing effects are pushed to alter ego, right? You want to get a little extra heal or heal somebody else, you're probably going to need to be flipped up.
Yeah, that's one of the other things I was going to say about it. So far, I believe all of the civilian traits are on alter ego sides, so it is in effect alter ego locked without actually being alter ego locked. Or we may well see a hero with civilian at some point. I can think of at least one MCU hero that could well have the civilian trait.
Mm-hmm. In game so far, who do we have? We have Nova comes in his pack, so he's also a civilian on his AE. Ghost Spider, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, those 3, and Quicksilver. Those are the ones I remember just offhand.
Spectrum is also civilian.
Oh, Spectrum? Okay. Spectrum as well. A little more healing for her.
And Ant-Man, Scott Lang.
Oh, that's right, Scott Lang. Okay. So all of those are prospective users of Everyday Hero. So he's going to have 2 copies of these, right? Everyday Hero. It doesn't look like it says max one per deck.
I don't think it's max 2 either, is it?
Yeah, it doesn't have a max, so there could well be 3. Yeah, 3 would be really nice.
I didn't think of that. That'd be interesting. Yeah, because he does get the benefits from having the wilds.
I think it will work well for him because hero mode, he can use it to trigger his various, to get his events cheaper for the double ones that generate double wild. And then if he's in alter ego, he can use it and get the heal out of it or give it to somebody else. I think in Nova, particularly, it'll have, because it has that extra hero use, it will be nice. I don't think I would want to run 3 of them in most of those other heroes that we mentioned. But I think running 1 or 2 could still be an interesting option, at least in a multiplayer game. I don't know that I would run it solo with those heroes, but again, yes, might be useful. It's a card that I do wish. I wish Miss Marvel was a civilian, because I do feel like multiplayer Miss Marvel, this would fit really well. Because, you go to alter ego and sometimes you just have extra resources and cards floating around. It would be nice to be able to give them to somebody else.
Especially because she has so much going on her alter ego side.
Yeah, any hero that you want to flip a lot, it's good with.
Actually, even though we noted that it works with Ant-Man, probably not Ant-Man, because I don't think you go alter ego with Ant-Man.
Yeah, you tend to be flipping his hero forms rather than going alter ego.
Spectrum is, and she does go alter ego, I find, because it's the way that you switch between forms when you can't draw the cards you need. She doesn't have a lot going on in alter ego. I think where it gets tricky with those characters, because it's kind of like, if I happen to have this, then I can give it to somebody else, which is cool and nice, but often are you going to be in that situation? That's where, in Nova, it's nice because even when you're not in that situation, you can still make pretty good use of the wild.
It's got utility either form you're in.
I think it's going to be tough to run in characters that can't make good use of it in hero form.
A good point to stop, maybe, with the cards. And Scott, you said you wanted to go over some of the possible rules questions or rules implications for these cards in particular, or did you have something broader in mind?
These cards in particular, really. I'm not sure that there are actually that many with the ones we've picked, but that will make it editing easier for you.
Well, the only one I could think of is fluid motion. I think not a lot of people picked up right away that you would have to...
The max 1 per attack event part, right?
Yes, the max 1 per attack event means through the course of play, if you want to trigger it, you want to play an event, resolve it, and then exhaust 1 copy, and just 1 copy of fluid motion if you have multiple copies out. And then you will have to play another event if you want to exhaust and get the benefit of a second copy. That's what the max 1 per attack event means there.
I do think Everyday Hero has some interesting rules implications with this card can be spent for any player. I think everybody's going to know how that works, but sort of similar to the Milano. I think the rules don't technically cover people spending resources for other players.
No, probably not.
I think is an interesting scenario in that respect. Like, if you were getting the resource rules down and you wanted to make it so that it actually covers all these cards, it'd start to get a little messy, I think.
Is there any particular case or a case in particular that you see this causing a problem or a question using it for another player?
I don't think, like I said, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Just like spend it for another player. Sounds very simple. I don't think that people will have an issue using it in the way that, as far as I can tell, it's intended to be used. But I could just see someone reading resources and costs in the RRG and being like, wait, how do I square these two, this rule with this card?
So in that case, it would just go to, or revert to the golden rule, right? Just do what the card says.
Just do what the card says.
I think there are at the moment, but I can see potential interaction questions over it in the future. Like if somebody has an ability that triggers off spending resources, does this trigger it, and for whom Does it trigger it for the person you're spending the resource for, or only for the person with Everyday Hero? But yeah, that's a potential future issue, which I don't think is present in the game at the moment.
Yeah, you just never have to print that ability.
Yeah, which means they probably will.
Exactly.
All of the cards that say discard a blank resource, those wouldn't apply to this anyways, right? Like the obligations from Kang, right? Discard a physical resource.
Yeah, that doesn't, because it's when you're discarding, you're not generating a resource, and so it's still just a wild.
Right, so it's not spending, right? And it would still be a wild. It doesn't apply.
As far as we know.
I'm wondering if there's those sorts of abilities that are going to cause potential rules questions with spending for someone else.
So I think I know the answer to this, but if somebody gets an obligation and it says spend whatever amount, and they want somebody with Everyday Hero in their hand to help them spend, that wouldn't be possible, right? Because the player with the obligation has to trigger it. Or would it be possible?
Well, but it would be triggering it, right? And then you would be spending the resource for them?
Yeah, I think that works because the limitation is on who triggers the ability, not who pays for it. Maybe. Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, we have an example, right? Valkyrie's obligation. Alter ego action, spend energy, mental resources for the game. I think you can spend Everyday Hero to help the Valkyrie player before that obligation action.
Just because they're not triggering it, they're just spending a resource?
They're triggering it, and you are spending a resource for that player. You're the Everyday Hero.
So we can investigate further. That seems like a reasonable reading.
We haven't said anything about no quarter in terms of rules. I think there is really only the one thing is we don't have a full definition for requirement. What the Nova announcement article says is the high amount of wild resources in Nova's deck can also help you pay for cards like No Quarter, which requires that you spend at least one physical resource in order to play it. So it seems to be a keyword version of the play restriction we've seen on quite a few cards, and I expect it to work exactly the same, but until we've actually seen the wording of the keyword itself, you can't be certain. Reading that bit, it seems to suggest that they work exactly the same.
Preview articles are kind of notorious for sometimes getting some things wrong about either the hero or a rule or something. So yeah, we can't rely completely on it. But that's just what we have so far. But does that mean you can't reduce No Quarter to actual resource cost of actual 0, right? You'll always have to pay at least 1, do we think, if that's the rules text?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Did we want to mention the connection to the world mind? It's a resource with a wild resource at the bottom, and it says connection to the world mind does not count toward your hand size. And the big question among people who saw this was, well, how does it work when you draw it when you're drawing your hand? Like at the end of the player phase. Do you draw one more? Or does it not work because you drew all 5 simultaneously?
And I think that most straightforward reading, the reading that I imagine anyone that doesn't spend too much time a day wondering about how the rules of this game exactly work, would be that they would just draw another card. You'd see it, you say, oh, it doesn't count. I'm going to draw until I have my hand size. And I think that for those of us in the rules discussion, it seemed like this is mostly this makes us rethink how we thought hand size worked. We've never been quite sure about it, but this definitely seems like it works the way that that a casual reader would assume, that you keep drawing cards.
Yeah. The issue in the rules, I guess, is that whether the hand size check is continuous or whether it stops immediately after you draw is not very clear in the rules. So therein lies the problem reading this card. But as you said, the easiest interpretation is just going to be to just draw another card. It feels right, and until further notice, that's how I'll play it. So I guess we'll close out there. I did want to mention that just really quickly. It might not make it in the cut, but so the Nova Pack is going to have a modular set. It looks like a 6-card set with a character called Armadillo, which looks fun. And I just wanted to mention that a bunch of the people that usually crunch the numbers on the card sets have guessed that it would be a 6-card modular set, and then the other 6 cards might be the backing cards. So it's not exactly, they might be like unique cards or interesting one-of cards. So you won't technically be getting like less cards, but you will also be getting, in addition to the pack, the 6-card modular. And I thought that was an interesting direction to go. I think the only apprehension people had about it was that it was kind of a new decision point in buying a pack.
I think people are concerned, for example, if you had like a Doctor Doom modular in some hero that you were never going to buy. It's kind of like, well, but it has Doctor Doom, and I want Doctor Doom, I mean, it's probably not going to be I would imagine most villains of that level are not going to show up as a hero pack modular, but, everybody has kind of their favorite hero or favorite villains, and if that villain that you really like happens to show up in the back of a hero pack, then do you buy it just to get them?
But this may be just like an experiment, so it's very likely that at least they haven't announced or said anything that this is going to be an ongoing thing, so it's probably just something they're trying out, and I think it's fun and interesting.
I can see it being something they do for this wave. And in terms of do you buy the pack for the modular set question, I think we've always had that question. Obviously, it hasn't been for a modular set, but there is the back 12 cards, and quite often there are really good cards in those back 12. And so do you buy a hero that you don't like just to get like maybe one card or one set of 3? I think it's always going to be a question, and yeah, this does add another dimension to that question. It's something only you can decide for yourself, really.
I think it's a more thematic side of it, right? The aspect cards are much more the gamery gamer is like, well, do I want those cards? They have cool effects, but for the people that are really in it just for the theme, people that are just picking up for precons, right? Don't care about the back 12 at all, but this makes them actually care about it. So maybe they just have to now grapple with the issues, not issues, but challenge that people of the more gamer side, more mechanic side gamers have grappled with throughout.
Or just be like me and buy everything.
Buy everything, just really slowly.
I think that's pretty much it for the Nova Pack for our 3-card preview, plus dash of rules at the end there. Thanks for being with me, Scott. Thanks for being with me, Theorel. It was nice having you.
Yes, Bob.
See you guys later.
We hope that was informative. Tune in for our next episode next month. Thanks to my distinguished colleagues, Theorel and Scott, for joining. And remember, when you would rather not read the rules reference, listen to the card text instead.